Osiyo! Welcome to Short Story Sketches, where you watch me struggle through a background painting. Sorry, that's just how it feels sometimes. But anyways, you watch a time-lapse painting while I read some stories off of Reddit. We typically read stories off of r/AITA, and maybe one day we'll branch out, but not today. Today's not that day. For our first post, this has been marked as not safe for work, so I just wanted to give that warning in case you are listening to this on your lunch break and you don't have headphones in or something. But let's go ahead and get on to the title, which is, Am I the asshole for not warning my wife about my ass rag? Whew, this one's gonna be interesting. Okay, context. My wife is weird about butt stuff. I'm not talking about sexual butt stuff, that's obviously personal and up to the individual. I mean her unwillingness to acknowledge that anything comes out of our butts, or that people even have buttholes. When we bought our house, I wanted to install a bidet, but my wife was against it. I told her she didn't have to use it, but she just said seeing it would gross her out. I mentioned not feeling clean from just wiping with paper, and she didn't understand. Not everyone has a naturally hairless butthole that requires wiping. She asked if I could find an alternative, and I said I could use wet wipes, but they're not flushable. None of them are, by the way, so they'd have to go into the trash. She didn't like the idea of poopy things in the trash can and told me to figure something else out that she didn't have to know about. So, on to my ass rag. I took an old towel, tore it up, and installed a discreet hook behind the toilet to hang the rag. It's completely hidden. The way our bathroom is set up, and we only have one, the sink is right next to the toilet, so I'm able to wet the rag, clean up, wash it in the sink, hang it back up. I swap it out a couple times a week. Gross? Maybe. But I figured that's my business since my wife did not want to hear about my butthole cleaning habits. Recently, my wife and I were showering together and she forgot to bring in a washcloth for herself. I don't use one. I usually use a sisal pouch with bar soap. Sisal? I think it's a sisal pouch. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. I offered to hop out and grab her a washcloth, but she said, "No, don't worry about it. I'll just use yours," and reached for my ass rag. I said, "You don't want to use that," and she asked why. I just said, just trust me. And she kept pushing. So I came clean about my ass rag. She was horrified, started dry heaving, and kicked me out of the shower. Apparently she had been using it as a washcloth for years whenever she forgot hers, which is often. What I don't get is how she thought it was my washcloth because A, it's hidden behind the frickin' toilet, and B, she knows I don't use a washcloth. We got into an argument. From my perspective, it was obvious that my ass rag wasn't a washcloth. All bets are off when you use someone else's stuff without asking, and her butthole hang-up is interfering with my personal hygiene. From her perspective, I violated a clear boundary she set years ago, and I'm just an overall gross person. I did apologize, but I was upset and my apology wasn't really sincere. I'm sleeping on the couch right now to try and give her some space, but I'd like to know if I owe her a more sincere apology over this whole ass rag fiasco. I'm not really sure, and her reaction has me thinking that maybe I actually am disgusting and I'm lacking the perspective to see it. But I also don't think that her butthole aversion is normal, and it's the main reason I ended up resorting to this solution in the first place and not telling her about it. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get into some of the comments because I cannot wait to see what people are gonna say about this situation. Falling into Polka Dots says, "I see the problem. How are you supposed to warn her about something she doesn't want to know about? She could have asked, 'Hey, what's that washcloth behind the toilet?' It's very unfortunate that she's been using your ass rag as a washcloth, but also it couldn't have been gross or anything since she had no problem using it. So clearly it didn't smell or have poop stains on it. I don't see much a way around this whole extreme aversion to the knowledge that things come out of our butts. I really hope y'all aren't planning on having kids, without having a second toilet for you to use with a bidet or ass rag. OP responded and said definitely no kids. Not something either of us wants, and also I've had to leave work and drive 45 minutes out to my sister-in-law's place when she was babysitting because she didn't realize our niece was still in diapers. But I think she might be open to therapy because she's starting to come around to the idea that she probably has OCD. In the meantime, I'll try to be more accommodating and maybe just bring the rag in and out of the bathroom with me. We're saving up to put in a second bathroom anyway. I do clean the rag pretty thoroughly after each use, and I use it after I've wiped as much as I can with paper, so it doesn't really get super dirty anyway. And I have to say, I agree with the commenter and the OP as well. I think having a second bathroom would be the ultimate solution for this. That way they could have their own private spaces with their own private practices, and if he wants to install a bidet, it wouldn't be a big deal to her because she wouldn't have to look at it. She would have her own separate space. But obviously, that is a huge financial endeavor, and not everyone can do that. Yeah, but it does sound like they're already in the process of doing something like that, so that will help, hopefully, in the future. Miss Krant comments, "You're being very gracious and generous here. I'm glad that your wife is opening up to the idea that therapy might help her, but I don't actually think you need to be as accommodating as you are. People have to live with the fact that other people have butts they want clean. Her being angry at you for crossing a boundary when she imposed this on you is ludicrous. Again, I think it's really, really lovely that you recognize it's disorder thinking and that you're being patient with it, but I also think it's important that you have boundaries, and being able to clean your own butt could be one of those boundaries." Crafty Original 7349 says, "Wet wipes and a trash can lid plus liner is probably the best option. Just find a can that you flip the lid open with your foot so you don't have to touch it and she doesn't have to look at it, and keep a bottle of hand sanitizer on the back of the toilet next to your wet wipes." Ayuamarca 2020 replies to that comment saying, "Not sure where OP is from, but here in the UK we have a product called Wipe," it's spelled with a Y, which is a gel that you can put on toilet paper to turn it into a wipe, which is still flushable because you're still using toilet paper. There may be something similar wherever OP is. That's interesting. I did not know that that was even a product, but I guess it would be a good solution for making a truly flushable wipe. Mr. Buenos Dias 1 says, "Best AITA I have ever read." I was crying laughing because of the absurdity, not the asshole. How do you tell someone about something they don't want to know even exists? If it was in such an inconspicuous location, I wonder why she would think you would even have it there. I would love a bidet in my place. I just time everything where I can have a BM and shower after if possible. Not sure what she expects you to do. Enjoy the couch until she's ready to get over it. Far King Kent commented and said, "I laughed my arse off the whole time I was reading it. Proper hurting my guts, tears down my face laughing. Best read I've had since coming across the Harborough sugar-free gummy bear reviews. Tell her to move on, OP. But yeah, probably should have mentioned the ass rag earlier, LOL." I have to admit, I was really holding back laughing as I was reading this post because it was just so ridiculous, and the way that OP worded things was very charming. It was like in a very comedic way. So I also was very entertained by this post. I hope you all were too. Best of luck, OP, to you and your wife, and let's get into the next story. Immediate Piano 2045 asks, "Am I the asshole for making my parents replace my toys they decided to give away?" I'm moving to another city for work. Since I'm an adult and not a college kid, I hired movers. My parents insisted on coming to help me pack up. I live in their basement suite. It was cheap and they let me have my privacy. They brought my brother and my nephew. The four of them were as helpful as a bag of used horse condoms. Oh my gosh. Especially my nephew. My parents decided to keep him busy by giving him one of my Lego sets to play with. I collect them. What I usually do is buy two of the same one. I build one, put it up for display, and then I leave the other one in the box to trade or sell. He took it upstairs to stay out of the way, and then he took it home. All I noticed is that he was out from underfoot. The next day, I saw the box on the garbage. I didn't assume. I knew the answer already, but I didn't assume. I went upstairs to talk to them and I asked where the Lego box came from. They said they gave it to Travis to keep him busy. I told them that they needed to replace it. They said I was being childish for caring so much about a toy. So I said they could replace it or I would file an insurance claim and that would probably require a police report. My dad got angry. He pulled out $70 and told me that I was an asshole for making a fuss over a toy. I asked him if that was a down payment. He said that's what he spent on the last Lego gift he got me for Christmas and that's what those helmets cost. I showed him the box and I told him to keep his money. He just had to give me a sealed box like the one he stole. He said he didn't steal anything. He took the box and went to the Lego store nearby. When he came back, he was apologetic. He said he would get it back from my nephew, and I said I wanted a sealed box with the TIE Fighter helmet. I even went on eBay to help him find one cheaper than he had found by himself at the collectibles store that the guy at the Lego store sent him to. With shipping, it would only be $300. He ordered it, and he isn't happy about it. My mom's upset that I'm expecting that much money for a toy. My dad is upset that I didn't explain before he went and made a fool of himself at the store. And I'm upset that they stole from me. Am I the asshole? Carrie Fur commented and said, not the asshole. Your parents are judgmental and inconsiderate. 1, they literally stole something of yours and gave it to your nephew without asking you first. 2, when you asked them about it, they belittled you for even having it in the first place. 3, they didn't even think they needed to replace the stolen item and probably wouldn't have even told you about it if you hadn't asked. Their opinion of whether Lego products are for kids is irrelevant because the fact is that they're a collectible item that people pay a lot of money for. All of it could have been avoided if they had just asked you first, or, even better, if they had bothered to have things in their home to entertain their grandson in the first place instead of just taking your stuff. They probably hoped since you had so many boxes of Lego sets you wouldn't notice it was missing. Let's Try This Again 30 says, they're collectibles. People understand that, but are stubborn on what they consider worth collecting. Which is weird when they don't bat an eye at a Mickey Mantle rookie card being worth millions and understand that buying a pack of cards won't make up for that. Tekris replied to that comment saying, so many people don't care to understand the value of things if it's something they aren't interested in. My boyfriend's dad thinks it's ridiculous that trading cards, which are just pieces of cardboard, can be sold for large amounts of money, but can't apply that to his various worldly tchotchkes. I wouldn't pay anything for his little African wooden figure or Japanese painting. I'm not into things like that, especially since they aren't souvenirs to places I've been. Nothing is inherently valuable. It's all relative on whoever wants it and how much they want it. CP Sue says, not the asshole. You handled this beautifully. You held your ground and created a situation in which your dad had to figure out for himself how badly he messed up. His irritation now is his embarrassment at having screwed up. It's okay to let him learn that lesson. I'm sure he'll never make this mistake again. Ignore his posturing. B0DDE, Bode, maybe? Says, you're the asshole. Yeah, dude, you're the asshole. Don't get me wrong. Your parents made a mistake and were clearly oblivious about the whole thing, as most parents tend to be. And as a fellow Lego lover, I get that this is a very bad situation for you. But the way you handled it makes you the clear asshole. Immediately escalating, mentioning police reports and insurance claims, that's what assholes do. Your dad got defensive and maybe didn't respond great either, but judging from how you seem to have started the conversation, no wonder he did. He just wanted to come help his kid, however useless you described him to be, and he was apologetic the moment he realized the truth of the situation, because he's not an asshole. So, yeah, you are in your right to ask for compensation, absolutely, but you did handle it like an asshole. Deadly Siren replied to that comment and said, I'm disappointed by how long it took for me to find this comment. Yes, OP was right to get his stuff replaced, but he handled it in the way that an asshole would, whereas it seems his parents made a genuine mistake and have actually fixed it. I also do not understand why OP wouldn't have established as soon as the nephew turned up that his Legos aren't toys. And I don't believe his I didn't notice / wasn't paying attention bit. With that last comment, it seems like there is a little bit of a split down Reddit on what they think about this situation. I did read more not the assholes than you're the assholes, but I feel like this comment actually had some truth to it. he was in his right to ask for compensation. It wasn't right what happened. The parents should have asked, hey, is it okay if your nephew plays with this? But the way he handled it was pretty rude and disrespectful. And it's hard to say the type of relationship that OP has with his parents. It kind of sounds like maybe there's been some tumultuous things going on, you know, between them already. Like maybe there's some history there that we are not aware of with how this family deals with conflict. And I feel like that kind of came out in this situation. So I myself am a collector, and I absolutely understand what heartbreak is like whenever something of yours is lost, or I haven't had anything stolen. Okay, you know what? Actually, I have. That's another story though. That's like, it was stolen, but like not by someone I knew. I had posted it on eBay, and the buyer claimed that it never arrived, that it never came to them. And instead of messaging me personally so we could resolve it, they just opened a case through eBay, and that's how I figured it out. That's how I was told. Which is kind of a big deal whenever you're a seller on eBay, right? Like you don't want cases opened against you. So I messaged the buyer and tried to get a hold of the post office, and I did everything I could, but at the end of the day, it didn't arrive. And even though it wasn't my fault, I really didn't want the negative review, so I refunded all of their money. And the next day, I found a YouTube video on one of the collectors' pages that I'm a part of, like group pages on Reddit. And it led to this person, this buyer, unwrapping my package and talking about how this just came in a couple days ago and they hadn't had a chance to actually open it just yet. And my stomach just turned. I mean, my heart was crushed. Like at first it was like feelings of hurt. Like, how could you do this? Why would you do this to someone? Like, I'm just another collector like you. It's not like you just stuck it to the man. I'm not like this big corporate business that deserved this, you know? Like, I'm just like some small collector trying to make some hobby money back, you know? I mean, collecting's a very expensive thing. And, you know, sometimes if I have a duplicate of something, I will resell it in order to try to recoup some of that money back that I've spent and invested in this collection. So, you know, it was one of those things where like I had already given it to them at a very fair price. Like a lot of people were kind of price gouging on eBay with this product, and I purposely did not price gouge. I just wanted to make a decent amount of money but not go overboard. I wasn't trying to be greedy with it. And so it was just like, it was crazy to me, like, that they lied. They totally just lied. And yeah, I ended up blocking them, and I will not sell to them ever again, which is kind of unfortunate for them because there were several times that I would post something and they would ask about buying it, and I flat out had to tell them at one point, I know what you did, and I'm never gonna sell to you again. I'm sorry. It's just something that I don't feel comfortable with anymore. And the person actually ended up, like, they never apologized for it, but they didn't deny it either. Like, I think they kind of got a little embarrassed over the whole thing. Like, oh my gosh, you actually saw that that's what I did. You know, I had no idea that you would find that video kind of feeling, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, sorry, went off on a tangent there. But yeah, I also am a collector, and I understand, like, those feelings, like how your heart drops whenever something happens to something in your collection that you've saved and treasured for so long, and you weren't necessarily ready to get rid of it, and especially in such a way where you had no choice in it, like where it was taken from you and then destroyed. Funny enough, I actually have another story that this reminds me of. But I don't know, I feel like I've talked way too much about my own stories. We're here to talk about Reddit, right? Not me. So I'll move on from it. But I also have had a younger person rip up a collectible item whenever I had saved it for years, and I was livid. I was so mad. At the time I was a teenager. But yeah, I was not happy. So I absolutely understand what OP is saying and how they're feeling, but I think maybe it could have been handled a little better. I personally would not have handled it as harsh as they did, but I have a good relationship with my parents, so that may be a factor, like I said, that we aren't aware of in this situation. But let me know what you guys think. I'd be interested in hearing your opinions on this and on the previous story as well. Thanks for watching. I was a little annoyed with this painting for several reasons. Reason one, I'm just not really happy with how the cityscape went. I just think that kind of like the middle of the entire picture went wrong, and I'm not really sure how to fix it or what to do better next time. Also, this was my first time trying to seriously do rakes. Rakes seem to be really popular right now among other artists, and I've been kind of studying like how they use them. A lot of people will use them for highlights, or I've seen people use them to indicate like city lights or like street lights, and sometimes they'll use them for like blades of grass or I don't know, just highlights. I've seen people use them as highlights. So I've been trying to incorporate them just every now and then to some of my stuff, and every time I've tried it, I've never cared for it, so I always end up deleting that layer. I ended up trying to use rakes all over this project, and I just don't think it really worked out as well as I was hoping it would. So obviously I still have some things that I need to figure out before I start including rakes in any type of portfolio work. Also, my iPad decided to just randomly stop recording, which, you know, if you notice that there was like a whole chunk of footage missing, that's because there was, yeah. I was not happy about it, and I couldn't get my iPad to just stop randomly recording. And after a while, I got tired of redoing the same thing over and over just for the sake of trying to get a recording of it, that I finally was just like, bleh, oh well, you know? So the whole reason I actually was inspired to do this painting is because Devin L. Kurtz ended up coming out with a new brush pack, and it was all about clouds, and I love clouds. I love painting clouds. So I was like, oh yeah, gonna have to do something with clouds. So it's kind of a bummer that that everything else about this painting I didn't like, but I really like the clouds. And honestly, I really liked the grassy hill too. So I don't know, I guess I'm just a little disappointed with the rest of it. It means a lot to me that you took the time to watch this video, to listen to me ramble about painting or Reddit stories, so wadoginali, and please enjoy your next video. Bye!